Oh, it was beautiful to see what transpired Game 3. Giannis Antetokounmpo dominant again. Devin Booker, not so much. And as a result, we have an NBA Finals series. It's 2-1. Milwaukee is standing up. I would know, because I'm here. First Take crew back in the house after a week off due to routine. We back. Let's go.
It's a 0-0 mindset for us.
We got to keep getting better in order for us to put ourselves in a position to win the series.
We know it gets rowdy in Milwaukee, but I think we're ready for it.
Antetokounmpo draws a foul, banks it home. He will not be stopped. Oh, he throws it down. Cameron Johnson. Giannis Antetokounmpo punishing the Suns back-to-back 40-point final games.
Game 4, we got to break it. We got to play together. We got to believe in our winning habits. We got to stay aggressive.
The crew is back, and so is Giannis. We are back on ESPN as well. Finals underway. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman. I'm Molly Karen Rose. I like the beat. Ready to go, fellas? Ready to do this?
Every day.
All right, let's go. As Stephen A. just mentioned, we got a series, y'all. The MVP showed up and then some as Giannis and the Bucks pull off the franchise's first finals win since '74. Giannis dropped 41, 13, and 16, but he didn't do it alone. Chris Middleton with a big first half, and Drew Holiday also did his thing. The Suns now lead 2-1. It certainly didn't help losing DeAndre Ayton in the third to foul trouble. Giannis, talk to me.
Michael Jordan had 4 straight 40-point games against the Suns in the NBA Finals.
I'm not Michael Jordan.
Is that in jeopardy?
I'm not Michael Jordan. 40 points in a straight 2.
4 in a row.
Yeah, I've never. No, I'm not Michael Jordan. But all I care about right now is getting one more. That's all. Just take care of business, doing our job.
I think that's when we're at our best, when Giannis is at his best. It's a little bit of both. He's a great playmaker. He's a great passer. He's a great screener. He does so many things, and I think when he's conscious of doing a little bit of everything, he's very capable, and that's when he's at his best.
All right, Stephen A., you're out there, you're watching these games up close and personal, feeling the energy. Who has the edge now?
Right now, I think that, believe it or not, even though they're a game behind, I would tell you that Milwaukee has the edge, assuming that they play the way that they played last night. And what I mean by that is that when you had people like myself feeling like they were clueless, or when you had Kendrick Perkins being far more incendiary with his language about the idiocy that he was witnessing in front of Milwaukee Bucks, what we were talking about was the fact that this is a team that's bigger and significantly more physical that was not using it to their advantage. That wasn't the case last night. Giannis back-to-back 40-plus games, 42 points in Game 2, obviously 41 last night. You look at Chris Middleton, he was making some shots. Drew Holiday was making some shots, even though neither have been shooting particularly well from the field. But more importantly than anything else was the dominance in the paint. 18-point advantage, 16 to 18-point advantage in the paint in the first half. I forgot what it was overall, but they were taking the ball to the rack, and they recognized the fact that the Phoenix Suns are compromised health-wise with Dario Saric going down. It's really about DeAndre Ayton because Frank Kaminsky ain't going to give you but so much. So as a result, once DeAndre Ayton went into foul trouble, you had the Phoenix Suns having to incorporate a zone with Jay Crowder in the middle, for crying out loud. And we all know he would be undersized. So Giannis, being the big boy that he is, playing bully ball, that's what ultimately the Milwaukee Bucks did. And if they continue to do that, the Phoenix Suns are going to have that much more of a problem, and everything is going to be on the shoulders of the Devin Bookers and Chris Pauls of the world, because there's very little to nothing that they can do in the interior, particularly when DeAndre Ayton has to guard himself from getting into foul trouble.
I got to start with, let me answer the question first, and I got to talk about Giannis for a second. Suns still have the advantage. You're not wrong about what you're saying, Stephen A. If Saric isn't there, they don't have. Ayton can wind up in foul trouble if Giannis is aggressive, and that changes things for sure. It changed it last night. Suns still have the advantage because they're up 2-1. They have a better starting 5, and they have home court still. They still have the advantage. But I got to say something about Giannis, because a lot like Chris Paul, and you set it up. You're talking about Devin Booker and Giannis. But I'm looking at this in terms of the storyline. Chris Paul. Could you imagine if Chris Paul didn't win that game 6, if they would have collapsed, lost the game 7, every team he's on, they're up 3-1 and they collapse and Chris Paul can't get it done. And instead he totally flipped that script. Could you imagine if Giannis didn't have that performance last night? They get to the finals, but game 4, he hyperextended his knee. They did it without him, right? They look better without him. Kendrick Perkins on this show talking about Middleton is Batman and Giannis is Robin. Could you imagine if they go down 0-3, because you obviously lose at that point? So the stakes were so high for Giannis, and he just did something no one since Shaq has done, no one except Shaq has ever done since we've been counting. 40-10 in consecutive finals games? The dude is a beast. Giannis is a beast. The reason, Stephen A., the Suns will win, however, in spite of the fact that Saric is injured, is look what Monty Williams is doing. Remember the criticism of Doc, and I criticized Doc. Like, why are you, look at these rotations, 10 guys deep, you're in the playoffs. Monty Williams and I played him like all the starters, 40 minutes each, and you got the better starters. So could foul trouble be a problem for Ayton? Sure. But Ayton's play can get better, and usually it's been very good against other bigs we've seen throughout the finals. Suns have the better starting 5. They have a coach who's willing to play them. They have home court. They're up 2-1.
Well, first of all, I don't know if we can definitively say they have a better starting 5. Certainly when we look at the way that CP3 and Devin Booker played in games 1 and 2, fine. But when you look at this is not LeBron with AD that we're talking about. This is not KD, Kyrie, and James Harden we're talking about. This isn't something like that. Chris Paul, we understand what he's been delivering in the postseason, and he deserves major, major credit. And he'll go down as one of the top point guards in the history of basketball. And Devin Booker has arrived in terms of the stud and the star that he is. But when you look at Giannis, and then you look at Middleton, and then you look at Jrue Holiday, I'm not certain I'm willing to definitively say that this is that the Phoenix Suns have the better starting 5. Last night it didn't look that way, but games 1 and 2 it did look that way. So we see how this series could potentially go, and we understand that in the end, what Phoenix has is a better perimeter play. The Milwaukee Bucks are bigger and more physical and can attack the basket. And if they do that time and time again and they're committed to beating Phoenix down, then Phoenix's only hope is to hit those perimeter shots. And that's not a higher percentage shot than playing bully ball and going to the paint, particularly when Giannis Antetokounmpo is hitting 13 of 17 free throws. And so when I look at it from that perspective, that's my concern right now. Can Phoenix still win the series? You're damn right they could. But they got to make shots, and they can't have Devin Booker shooting 3 of 14 from the field and sitting out the fourth quarter because his legs feel so heavy that Monty Williams wants to prioritize game 4 and rest him. That's a problem.
I find it very unlikely, knowing what I know about Devin Booker, what I've seen through his career. I find it very unlikely he's going to have poor shooting night after poor shooting night. Chris Paul is the master of the mid-range. They have outside shooters. They have three-point shooters. DeAndre Ayton's a load inside. I mean, they just think about how it looks different when these two teams score. When the Suns are going, and they usually are, the buckets are coming easy. Everyone's touching the ball. They're hitting the shots. When the Bucks are scoring, it looks like they have to work twice as hard for those points. I'm not ruling the Bucks out because they got last night's game. I can't rule them out, and they were energized by the hometown. There's no question about it. Home court really helped them. I'm not ruling them out. Until they win a game on the road, they can't win this series, and I wouldn't put it past Phoenix to come back and win game 4 on the road and really cement home court.
Well, neither would I, but let's engage in some hypotheticals here for a second, Max. If Milwaukee, which is incredibly conceivable, if Milwaukee wins game 4 and ties this series up 2-2, then game 5 is incredibly pivotal for Phoenix because you're talking about needing to force a game 7, which would be on your home court. And clearly, if there was a game 7, I would pick Phoenix to win a game 7 on their home court. What I'm saying is if Milwaukee ties this series up, then that puts an incredible amount of pressure on Phoenix for game 5. But it's not the Phoenix Suns that started off this series. It's the Phoenix Suns with no backup on the interior. When you look at the fourth quarter and they were down by 25, 26 points, you have Frank Kaminsky out there being kept out there specifically because Coach Monty Williams wanted him out there trying to elevate his confidence and actually kept Chris Paul in the game for like the first 6 or 7 minutes or so of the fourth quarter because you were on a mission to try to get him involved because you know how pivotal he's going to be the rest of this series. Frank Kaminsky. That's where we are when it comes to the Phoenix Suns.
That's a legitimate point.
That's how pivotal it is because of injury.
That's a legitimate point. And you're focusing just on Saric in terms of a little size, at least, instead of Jay Crowder, although I think in the modern game you could do worse than Jay Crowder at the 5. But, considering the way the game is played nowadays. But Saric actually also helps the Suns' offense, right? And in fact, really more usually would help the offense. Maybe in this particular matchup, we can talk about him defensively. So, yeah, that's a real loss for the Suns. I still think the Suns are in the driver's seat up in the series, and with an all-time great point guard, a guy who played at near MVP levels this year, and a crime partner in the backcourt, Stephen A., who, as I said, I find it extremely difficult to imagine, has poor shooting night after poor shooting night when it matters most. Devin Booker smells like a chips-on-the-line player to me.
That's fair, and we've seen how he's responded after a poor game when his back was against the wall. Giannis outscored the entire Suns team in the restricted area the past 2 games, 22 of 23 last night. And as for Game 4, Bucks favored by 4. Stephen A., let's stay in Wisconsin, where there's another bad man. 15 days until Packers training camp begins. As for Aaron Rodgers, he spoke at a charity golf event Saturday in Lake Tahoe, and he put a timetable on his decision. Listen up, y'all.
I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this week.
Rodgers, he spoke at a charity golf event Saturday in Lake Tahoe, and he put a timetable on his decision. Listen up, y'all.
I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this week, and then I'm going to get back to working out and figure things out in a couple weeks.
All right, Stephen A., fairly definitive, and obviously this is from a distance. You're closer to the situation, but while we were off over the past week, he also spoke about how he's really grateful for this time. He's worked on his mental health, his spirituality. He seems to be in a really good place. Where do you think he's leaning now?
Well, he probably is leaning towards staying in Green Bay because Green Bay has made no effort whatsoever to move on from him. Their mentality is that it's not a feasible decision for them financially, not to mention the fact that they recognize that he's one of the greatest quarterbacks who have ever played this game. He's a bad man. And as a result of that, they don't want to lose him. My whole point is that I pray to God I'm wrong. I hope that he is as steadfast in his decision. I hope that he's committed to staying away from the Green Bay Packers. I even hope that he's willing to inch towards retirement before going back to them. And as I've repeatedly stated on First Take on many, many occasions, I keep begging everybody to ask this question. What the hell did they do to him? This is not about football. I cannot tell you how much it rakes my damn nerves to listen to one football analyst after another talk about football when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. If you're talking about football, there's nothing to talk about. They were 13-3 the last 2 years with an NFC championship game berth. That is a championship contender. We're not talking about football. Aaron Rodgers is smart enough not to be talking about football. This is not what it's about with him and the Green Bay Packers. It is about how this man has been treated by this organization. They have done something to this man that makes this man not want to be there. But the question is, are you going to give up your career before you're willing to go back and play the game that you love just because you can't stand who you're working for one more season? I think that based on what I heard from there, that little soundbite right there, it kind of gives me the indication that he's leaning towards doing something he really doesn't want to do, and that's playing his final year in Green Bay.
That would be a big mistake for Aaron Rodgers, because then what was this all about? Aaron Rodgers needs to show that he's not bluffing, because Stephen A., if he shows he's not bluffing, the Packers have no move. They're going to have to do what he says. But if they feel like he's softening in his stance, if he's not willing, and in order to bluff, you actually have to be willing to follow through if it comes to that, right? Whether or not that's what you most want to do. If he's actually willing to sit out the year, what are the Packers going to do? Think about the Stafford-Goff trade, okay? Goff was drafted number 1 overall, made 2 Pro Bowls, won an NFC championship game, went to a Super Bowl, and he was traded along with 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick for Matt Stafford. Now, Stafford has a team-friendly contract. but Stafford is considered a better quarterback than Goff also. The point is, if you can get all that for Stafford, Goff, 2 firsts and a third, what are you going to get for Aaron Rodgers? So in the end, if Rodgers showed the Packers, I'm really not going to play for you. You know, if that's the price for Stafford, the bidding starts at 3 first-rounders for Rodgers, but it doesn't end there. Are they going to give that up? Of course not. They'll move him, but he has to show that he's serious by not playing for the Packers.
Well, let me say this to you, Max, and let me throw this back at you. Couple of things. Number one, you started off your soliloquy by asking the question, what was this all for? Well, what it was all for is that if it's an organization that wants to treat him like trash and wants to be dismissive of him or act like he's just another guy as opposed to him being that bad man that he is, okay, he was saying, okay, then get me up out of here. It shouldn't be an issue since you don't want me and I don't really want to be here. But come to find out, they do want him, and they just want to dismiss him like he's nothing, but they want him. But they know that he's not anything. They know that he's more than just nothing. They know that he's one of the great ones to have ever played, but they just want to treat him like he's just some ordinary Joe. The other side to all of this is this, Max. When we talk about him in this regard in terms of Matthew Stafford, let's understand with Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. The Los Angeles Rams did not want Matthew Stafford, okay? Sean McVay did not want him anymore. Les Snead didn't want him anymore. They didn't want him in Los Angeles. Goff, I'm sorry. Goff. That's what I'm saying. I said Stafford and Goff. They didn't want Goff any longer. And so it was easier for them to be willing to sacrifice and to give up what they gave up because they want a quarterback that they want. They didn't want him. They didn't believe in him anymore. And his relationship with the coach had appeared to sour. In the case of Aaron Rodgers, he might feel like Matt LaFleur is somebody that passes the buck, that doesn't accept enough accountability, but his disdain is not for Coach Matt LaFleur from what I've been told.
But Stephen A.
His disdain is for the organization, meaning the Mark Murphys of the world. And we saw that soundbite from Mark Murphy and what he said weeks ago, which I felt was incredibly incriminating towards him and really highlighted and illuminated why Aaron Rodgers is having a problem with this organization.
I'm not debating those points. The reason I brought up Goff and Stafford was to price Aaron Rodgers. If Stafford lands you 2 firsts, a third, and a former number 1 overall who's been to 2 Pro Bowls, is in his prime, and has been in a Super Bowl already,
right?
If that's Stafford's price, what's Rodgers' price? Now,
but didn't you hear what I said?
Yeah.
What I'm saying is they didn't like him. So in other words, they were willing to give up stuff because they wanted to get rid of him. So they were willing to give up more to get rid of him just as much as they wanted Stafford. It wasn't just about Stafford. It was about getting rid of him.
Let me put it another way. What does the bidding start at Rodgers for? It's at least 3 firsts. It's at least 3 firsts, even if they know he's a distressed asset and he wants out.
Unless
you ain't getting Rodgers
less than a superstar player or two with
3 first
unless you
round
throw
picks.
the superstar players too.
So let me. How it's never happened before. A quarterback who's physically, whatever his age is, still looks in his prime. Just won MVP, had one of the greatest seasons ever. Was in the NFC Championship game. He's on the trading block. At least 3 firsts. So my point is this: if Rodgers shows, I am not going to play for you, then at the least, Stephen A., we're going to find out what they actually think of Jordan Love. The only way they don't move him at that point is if they're like, we love Jordan Love. And by the way, the more I think about it, they still move him because if they love Jordan Love, why wouldn't they want to bring in at least 3 more first-round picks around him?
Hypothetical, because I'm not arguing your point. I just think you're missing something. I'm not questioning the legitimacy of the 3 first-round picks that you're saying. Only thing that I'm trying to throw in there, Max, is 3 first-round picks might not be necessary if you throw in a superstar talent with, say, 1 or 2 first-round picks. Like, let's say, for example, not that this would happen. Let's say not that this would happen, but let's say, for example, Aaron Rodgers decided he wanted to go to Baltimore. And Baltimore said, okay, we'll give you Lamar Jackson.
Yep.
Well, guess what? They don't have to give up 3 first-round picks now.
Correct.
See what I'm saying?
Correct.
If you got a superstar to throw in there, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to be married to the 3-round picks.
And Max, one other thing, it has to be a team that's ready to win right now because they're going to hold his age against him.
Oh, for sure. But actually,
Yes.
any team that Aaron Rodgers goes to, he ain't going to be
better.
less than 500. And if you put him on a
Sure.
decent team, they're contenders. And if you put him on a good team, they're going to be among the favorites to win a
Yeah.
Super Bowl. Look at the Packers.
But they need to be ready to go now. I mean, he is
Yes.
57.
I think
That's the
Aaron
one thing
Rodgers
against him.
turns any good. I think Aaron Rodgers turns any good team into a contender. He's a bad man,
He is.
y'all.
What is
he
he?
is a
What is he?
superstar.
Yes.
What is he? I like the way you said that. That could even become like a catchphrase. What is
Oh
he?
my gosh, you're unbelievable.
He's a bad man.
He's a bad man. We
bad
know.
man.
What does it all come down to?
He's special.
Respect. What did the lock say? Money, power, respect. Key to life. That's what Aaron Rodgers needs. That's a throwback. All right, we'll keep it rolling. Conor McGregor predicted Dustin Porrier would leave UFC 264 on a stretcher. He got half of that prediction right. Is Conor McGregor washed? Is he done? The fellas answer that. Plus, a couple weeks ago on this very show, Max Kellerman predicted Team USA was bringing a questionable roster to Tokyo. One exhibition loss to Nigeria later. Was Max right? Stay tuned. First Take, just getting started.
Trilogies. I see a man here in front of me that I've defeated, and I know I can defeat again.
I'm gonna make this man pay with his life.
This is a great trilogy.
I think he broke his ankle. I think he broke his ankle.
Oh no! You gotta be kidding me. So that is it. After 5 minutes, Dustin Porrier is gonna win this fight and thereby this trilogy by TKO.
When I pointed at him at the beginning of the fight, that's when I checked the good kick. I bet that's when it cracked.
There was no check. There was not one of them I checked. This is not over.
I miss going to fights. Dustin Poirier defeated Conor McGregor for the second time on Saturday night, although this one didn't end as cleanly as either fighter would have liked. Poirier awarded the first-round TKO by doctor stoppage when McGregor suffered a nasty leg injury following a Poirier combination. The broken leg didn't slow down McGregor's trash talk, though. Here he is after a surgery.
Dustin, you can celebrate that illegitimate win all you want, but you've done nothing in there. That second round would have shown all. And, you know, onwards and upwards we go, team. We dust ourselves off, we build ourselves back, and we come back better than ever. Let's go, team.
Stephen A., I'll crown you a true thespian when you get down that accent. You got a couple good accents so far, but I need to see the Conor McGregor accent as well. Max, I'll start with you here. Is Conor McGregor done?
I think yes, because of the way the UFC operates. They put you right back in tough. You know, this is not like boxing where you get slowly built up again. Conor McGregor, on his way up, was an athletic striker, fought off his back foot as a southpaw, would get under people's skin at the press conferences, would goad them in the ring to leading. He'd counter, hurt them, jump on them, knock them out, right? That's how he beat Max Holloway. At least that was a tactic that worked against Max Holloway. That was a tactic that worked against Poirier. Certainly Jose Aldo. And those guys were, for the most part, shorter than him. When he started fighting bigger, longer, taller guys with reach like Nate Diaz, it was a little more of a problem. That tactic's not as useful. When you're fighting guys who evolve over the years, as Poirier has, and get a ground game and all that, what do you do if plan A doesn't work and you go to the mat? McGregor, because he's been out of the game for so long, really, at a very high level, the last 4 or 5 years, has not fought much, has not developed those things, whereas his rivals have. And what are they going to do? Like the best thing they could do now, Stephen A., is he needs a guy like Jose Aldo in a rematch, a guy he's beaten, but a shorter striker to start building up his confidence, give him time to work on his ground game. But I don't think that's what's going to happen. There's too much money at stake, putting him in more meaningful fights at this point, and he has too big an ego, I think, to try to take 2 or 3 steps back and build himself up.
Well, the thing about the UFC fight game is that I don't think there are any steps back. You step into the octagon, you putting your life on the line. And I think that for me personally, Max, I think that Conor McGregor is done. And I think he's done primarily due to that injury. The fact of the matter is that, you know, when you consider what has transpired in the game, everybody talked about how Poirier in the first fight, in the sequel rather, against him, you know, with those leg kicks to the calves and what have you, and how that was relatively new to the game. It's not that it hasn't been done before. It's that the level of focus that was placed on really kicking Conor in the calf, you didn't see that, and you don't see that too often until recently. And even when Conor got knocked out in that second fight fight, one of the things that I said, it wasn't that he didn't get hurt by the punches, don't get me wrong, but I was saying that he was looking to go down because his legs were shot because of what Poirier was doing to him in that sequel. Now you got the trilogy, and in the trilogy, your leg just gives out on you, and literally it was just a nasty, nasty break, no question about it, the tibia and the fibula and all of that stuff that we ultimately learned later. Conor was losing the fight. 2 of the 3 judges had him losing 10-8. He was getting mauled. It was eerily similar to the second round that he suffered at the hands of Nurmagomedov when Nurmagomedov was mauling him in that second round, although Conor survived until the 4th. In the end, what it comes down to is that of his last 4 fights, which has transpired over the last 4 or 5 years, he's lost 3 and has been stopped 3 times by Nurmagomedov, knocked out by Poirier, and now you couldn't go the distance because of this broken leg. When you consider all of that and the fact that he is Conor McGregor, and like you just pointed out, Max, because of how large he is, how he's box office, you're not going to put him in with just anybody. There comes a point in time where your level of inactivity ultimately gets counted against you as well, because you haven't been there. Meanwhile, guys like Poirier, whether it's Nurmagomedov, who's retired, Charles Oliveira, all of these guys, they're active, they're fighting, and they're getting better and better and better. Conor's not getting better. And so I think about that. I think about the fact that Poirier despises him. And let me say this. I interviewed Conor McGregor last Wednesday. I flew from Phoenix to Vegas to interview him, and we saw it all over ABC and ESPN and all of that stuff this weekend. I root for Conor McGregor because I think he's great for the sport. I think he's great for sports overall. But Saturday was not his shining moment to sit up there and talk about Dustin Poirier's wife, to be so disrespectful, so classless, and what have you. We may want to see this fight again, no question, because we want to see him and Poirier go at it because they clearly despise one another. But in the end, I just don't think that Conor is on that level anymore because he's not active enough. Too much has happened. And I think the better man ended up winning the last 2 fights that he had with Poirier.
Yeah, talking about somebody's family, out of bounds. Max, let me ask you this. So Saturday night, Dana White suggesting that there could be another rematch between McGregor and Poirier. Do you even want to see a 4th fight?
No, not right now. I mean, if ever, like Conor has to show that he has chances to win the 4th fight. I didn't see that in the 3rd fight. And Dana, this is an argument he and I have had going back 20 or a bunch of years. When someone loses like that, I don't believe in immediate rematches. I think they have to show something that tells you they could actually win that rematch or it's bad for them. Conor needs time to build up his confidence in fights he can win, but also work on his game. When you go through that cycle of training and promotion and all that stuff, a lot of it is the game you're working on in the gym that you can then take to the octagon. What do I always say on this show, Stephen A? A dilemma is not just a tough choice. It's a choice between 2 bad options. What Conor, when he got buzzed and he saw Poirier's stand-up game, he realized, if I stand up, I'm in trouble right now. And so he kind of invited the clinch because it's also bad to be on the ground, prematurely went for a guillotine and wound up losing. He was but let's not forget, before he snapped the leg, he was getting pummeled with elbows on his back.
Well, let me say this to you. The argument makes no sense, but only because it's coming from you, who is renowned for covering the sport of boxing, who knows a thing or two about a puncher's chance. When I looked at Nurmagomedov maul Conor McGregor, what I remember is that Conor McGregor hadn't fought in a couple of years. He went into a boxing ring against Floyd Money Mayweather and still survived 4 rounds against Nurmagomedov. That's what I walked away with it from, even though I know the superior guy won because Nurmagomedov is just a powerful, powerful lightweight dude. The bottom line is Conor survived for 4 rounds. So I imagine, what if he were in shape? What if he had an opportunity to avenge that the way he avenged Nate Diaz when he went against him the second time? The same thing Saturday night. Yes, Poirier got the better of him, but I remember Conor coming out, and I thought he was relatively strong in the first 30 to 45 seconds. What happened is that obviously Poirier stunned him. Conor started the grappling. He's the one that grabbed Poirier first, got Poirier to the ground. Even though Poirier was on top of him, he had him in the guillotine, but Poirier couldn't get him he didn't let him get him sideways, which would have really put him in danger. Plus, he was sweating and whatever, and it was slippery or what have you. Couldn't really hold him there. But in the end, I found myself saying, wait a minute here. If this were the first fight, Conor would have been down, and that would have been that. That wasn't the case Saturday night as well. So I couple that with him having a puncher's chance. The only reason I'm reticent about him is because he's not healthy right now, because that nasty leg injury is going to keep him out and being inactive. But assuming that he was active, that he could get in there and train, do I give him better than a puncher's chance? Yeah, I think anything's possible, because I think Poirier has shown that he could get clipped and things could go wrong for him. I would still pick him to win. But it's still, I know not recently, these 12-2 of his last 14. I know it's not recently. I'm just saying the point is, with Conor's power and his boxing ability, his striking ability, I do think it's possible, even though Poirier would be a favorite. So I think it would be worthy of seeing a fourth fight if Conor were healthy. I just think it's a long time before he gets healthy, and that's my reservation.
If you see a fourth fight, I don't think it should be next, is my point. Conor has to do something in the intervening time to show he has a chance to win. Right now, I don't think he has a chance to win. You can bring up a puncher's chance. Stephen A., what makes the UFC exciting is everyone is a de facto one-punch knockout artist in a sense, because you can be submitted, because you can be hit, because you can be kicked.
But you've also talked about attrition.
The fight could always end at any moment in the UFC, and so you could say that about any fight. I don't think Conor Poirier, Conor gets special credit for his knockout power at this point. By the way, hold on. In the second fight, Conor really, Conor has shown in the past he's usually good for about 8 or 9 minutes when he's serious, right? And then he can run into problems. In this fight, he ran into problems after a minute and a half. It wasn't like, maybe if he had gone 3 rounds in the first 2, he looked really good and then he gassed a little bit. It's not what happened.
Okay. No problem.
All right.
Because you just went on with a point that I didn't care about, and I forgot the question I was going to ask you. So let's move on.
Welcome to the club.
Okay, since 2016, McGregor's 1-3, those 3 losses by KO or submission, so finished in all of them. We'll keep it rolling, fellas. Shohei Ohtani is putting on an absolute show this season. No pun intended, but is it good for MLB to have him as the biggest star in the league? Stephen A. says, hell no. Okay, he'll explain. Plus, with Tokyo right around the corner, how concerned should Americans be that Team USA just lost to Nigeria over the weekend? Max and Stephen A. debate that. Stay here. It's First Take.
I'm all for taking risks and taking shots.
Imagine hypothetically that I know what I'm doing.
You never know what can happen in these last couple games.
It's very tough to come to the crib, especially if I'm there.
No. You can't fight it. You know what's happening. You're trying to fight it.
Stunning defeat in its first exhibition game before the Olympics, getting outplayed by Nigeria in a 90-87 loss Saturday night. Now, coming into it, the Americans had been 54-2 in exhibition games. 5 years ago, Team USA beat Nigeria by 43 points in an exhibition. Nigeria has 7 current NBA players. The Americans started 5 all-NBA players. Here's Coach Pop with a silver lining.
In a way, I'm kind of glad it happened. That loss means nothing if we don't learn from it, but it could be the most important thing in this tournament for us, to learn lessons from this and see what we did to move on.
Max Kell, is this loss something or nothing?
It's nothing yet because of what Popovich said and did, right? It would be and it will be if they don't learn from it. And what do they have to learn? Stephen A., this is what I said from the beginning. When we start messing around and sending less than our very best, which this team is, this is not our very best starting 5, right? Our best starting 5 would be Steph Curry and James Harden and Kawhi Leonard and LeBron James and Kevin Durant. And we would never lose an exhibition. It doesn't matter what would happen. But that's not this. You can mess around and lose. Mike Brown is an NBA coach. He's coaching that team. They have a half a dozen guys in the NBA on the roster. The international three-point line is closer, making everyone a better shooter. And you saw that also. And so, yes, this Team USA is in greater danger than iterations we've sent when we've really sent our very best. That said, as long as they get serious, they should still win. If they don't take it seriously, maybe not. But as long as they get serious, they should still win. And so because of what Popovich said, I don't think this is something yet.
Oh, it's something. But listen, here's the reality of the situation. I don't give a damn what anybody says. You shouldn't need your very best to win gold in Olympic competition. But let's go over this roster just a touch. I mean, Middleton, Drew Holiday, Devin Booker are playing in the finals, so they'll show up there once the finals are over. But let's put this in its proper perspective, Max Kellerman, Molly Karen Rose. They have Kevin Durant. They have Damian Lillard. They have Bradley Beal. They have Jason Tatum. I'm sorry. I really, really, really need LeBron James and a few of the creme de la creme. Not that Giannis would be there because he'd play for Greece. But I'm just saying, when I'm thinking about it, I don't have enough. Are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. The reality of the situation is that when you look at certain players that we talk about, we might talk about tier one or whatever, but when you talk about bona fide stars in the National Basketball Association, we can pick at least 15 to 20 of them. Half of them are on this damn roster. There's no excuse to lose to Nigeria. Some dude, Gabe Namdi, who goes by Gabe Vincent for the Miami Heat, Caleb Agata, Namu, however the hell you pronounce his name. You give up 60 points on threes? Excuse me. You can do better than that. And oh, by the way, let's also look at Greg Popovich because he's a 5-time champion. One of the elite coaches this game has ever seen. Hasn't looked the same since Tim Duncan retired. A little bit different now. So let's point to everything. And let's understand, still in all, you have enough to win gold. It should not require that roster spot 1 to 15 is the absolute best that the NBA and USA basketball can send. We have enough great players. They just got to care enough and be focused, and we got to know that we got the right coaching.
They need to care enough. See, that's the point, Stephen A., and that's the reason we need our very best to be bulletproof. We can win without our very best team.
I can hear you.
That's the point. Caring is the point. We should be able to win without our very best team. And you're right, usually we do. But we're not bulletproof. When there have been upsets, it's because our very best isn't there. And then the question is why? Because as you go through the roster, you're right to point out, like, just imagine it was an NBA team. And you had KD and Tatum and Lillard. Everybody'd be like, that's the best NBA team in the world. So how can they lose to a team that a lot of guys couldn't even make the NBA? But that's what I mean by caring. It means so much more to these other teams, to these other players, to these other countries to win Olympic gold because there'll never be a higher basketball achievement. That's not the case for our guys. Our guys, the NBA Finals is the highest basketball achievement. And it's also the highest achievement in terms of basketball in the world.
What's your point?
They don't care as much about it as the players they're playing.
But that's not the point you've been making?
But that's not
hold on, wait a minute. You got slick.
What usually compensates for that is an absurd, overwhelming firepower. When we start to degrade that and send less than our very best, that's when upsets happen, which I warned about, and it just happened.
My bad. Because, see, I thought you were saying, Max, that, excuse me, you know what? You need elite talent because you going up against these dudes from other nations and they can play. I didn't know what you were saying is, excuse me, that elite competition offsets not caring. I mean, far be it for me to assume that if you choose to play in Olympic competition to represent your country, that you actually care. My bad. I didn't know that's where we will go. Okay? Because I'm assuming you care. I'm assuming you care. Because if you don't care, you shouldn't be there. Shouldn't be wearing the red, white, and blue. You should be representing the United States of America if you don't care enough.
It's not an issue of not caring. They don't care as much as the other guys because, as a matter of fact, this is not the pinnacle. Like, the Olympic gold is not the pinnacle of basketball in the world. The pinnacle of basketball in the world, by far, is the NBA Finals. That's what these guys get paid to do. That's what they work their whole lives for. So when they join the Olympic team, that's a feather in the cap. That's a great accomplishment. To some guys, it means a lot. but they're not going to be as emotionally invested as players where this is the biggest by far moment of their basketball lives.
And I challenge that because of reverse psychology. Yes, the pinnacle of basketball for you as a professional basketball player may be an NBA championship, but you know what? You could also dissipate or descend into an abyss of embarrassment because you were representing your country and you got smoked. That's another form of motivation and incentive.
But what we see, Stephen A., is when we send our very best, this never happens. This happens when we send a little less than our best. We start saying, well, this guy can't make it. And then what happens? Someone beats us every once in a blue moon, and then we get mad, and then all the best players go and we crush everybody again, right? This is this down cycle now, where we start to say, well, maybe we can win without him, and maybe we can. That's why I'm not saying this is something yet, but it could be.
Jerry Colangelo and Greg Popovich have something to do with the roster that's been assembled. What you gonna do about it? We always looking at just the players. What about them?
Legit.
Yeah. And to add insult to injury, Team USA was favored by 28.5 points, according to Caesars, in that one. Beat down. The most important player heading into a crucial Game 4 is it the no-brainer, obvious pick in Giannis. Stephen A. says negative. The player on his mind. Find out that next. And fellas, wild finish between the Astros and Yanks. It's got us thinking, is this now the best rivalry we're seeing in sports? We get into it. That's why he's MVP, putting up 41, 13, and 6, but it was a total team effort. Chris Middleton with a huge first half. Drew Holiday doing his thing. The Suns now lead 2-1. It certainly didn't help losing DeAndre Ayton in the third with foul trouble, but it was all about Giannis. 40 points, 10 boards in back-to-back finals games. Only 2 players in finals history have ever done that. LeBron in 2016, Shaq in 2000. Both of them won the title that year in finals MVP. Good company to be in, Max Kellerman. Is Giannis the most important player in the series?
He is. Look, 41, 13, and 6, right? The only thing that's up off his normal averages for the last 3 years is the points. Giannis will give you 28 to 30 and almost exactly an average over the last 3 years, 13 boards and 6 assists, by the way, with a block. You know, that's what he does. He's a 30, 13, and 6 guy. And he gave you an extra 11 points last night because, as you mentioned, DeAndre Ayton's foul trouble helped him out. But he was absolutely fantastic. 2 nights in a row, by the way, 2 games in a row. He had superhuman efforts and superhuman production, and this is coming off a hyperextended knee where he missed the end of the Eastern Conference Finals. It's always the same with Giannis and the Bucks. When he gets help, he can win and even be the best player on the floor, the best player in the world on that night, right? But he needs help. Great bigs, and Giannis is a big, need guys on their level. Sometimes Middleton can put the cape on. Sometimes Drew Holiday can. When he gets that, he wins. Otherwise, they waste a performance. Stephen A. Kendrick Perkins, can't wait till Kendrick Perkins is back on this show, talking about Middleton as Batman on some nights. But the Batman of this team is obviously Giannis, who had finals MVP performances in 2 of these 3 games.
You know what, Max? It's not that I'm looking at your points and I disagree with them per se. But I don't feel Giannis is that guy pretty much because I take him for granted. He walks around averaging 28 or better and with double digits in rebounds. When I think about Giannis, I don't think about the overall number, Max. I think about what you're going to do from the free throw line when it really, really counts. If the game gets tight, can I trust you to deliver free throws? Can I trust you to score when the defense sags and they force you to take a perimeter shot instead of allowing you to get to the basket at will? That's what I think about. I don't think about Giannis's overall numbers because I know they're going to be there. The question is, what are you going to do when it counts? And that's why when I think about the most important player, I really, really think about Devin Booker. Because when I look at Giannis in Milwaukee, I say, okay, those numbers are going to be there. All right, but Middleton and Drew Holiday, when you talk about importance, they got to step up and they got to help them out. I look at Devin Booker and I'm saying right now he's shooting 33% from three-point range. What is he shooting from the field? About 38%. He's averaging better than 22 a game, but the bottom line is last night he was absolutely positively anemic. shot 3 of 14 from the field, like 1 of 7 from three-point range. Just didn't have it. He didn't even play the fourth quarter because his legs were shot and they were gone. They don't have any chance of beating the Milwaukee Bucks as presently constructed if you don't get more quality production from Devin Booker. They have no chance because they simply don't have the bodies. That's why I've been a proponent of seeing Cameron Johnson, because this brother can shoot. I'm saying get him in the game more. I don't know what the hell has happened to Cameron Payne. He plays 37 minutes in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. He drops 29 and 9 in 37 minutes without a turnover, and there's been an APB out for him ever since. He twisted his ankle the next game. Hasn't been the same since. I don't know what the hell is going on with him because he's in the lineup and he's playing. I'm just saying, when you look at Phoenix and how depleted they appear and what they need in order to win this series, Giannis is going to get his numbers no matter what, just by accident. Devin Booker, to me, is the key, and that's why I have him, Max, as the most important.
In a way, like the kind of guy Giannis really needs to be a perennial championship contender, real contender, is Devin Booker. Because Giannis, there's a reason Shaq looked at Giannis and said he could have the Superman title. First guy Shaq said that about. Dwight Howard, he's like, this guy. Because he is like Shaq, this unstoppable physical force. But he's not a closer, just like Shaq wasn't a closer. Devin Booker, I called him on this show a mini Mamba. Because he's that kind of guy. And Kobe was the closer on those Lakers teams. But you know what? They played on the same team. In that case, Shaq and Kobe. Shaq got all 3 finals MVPs. He was the most important player in those finals. And they're on different teams right now. You know, the new Shaq and the mini Mamba, right? Superman and the mini Mamba are on different teams right now. And it's easy to look at the guy who you trust with the ball in his hands at the end of the game and go, that's the most important guy.
Max.
But because of Giannis and Shaq, you're even in that position.
No, you're saying that Shaq was the most important player because of his dominance and what have you. I would make the argument that in at least a couple of final series, Kobe was the most important. Now, Shaq was the most important against Philly because you had Dikembe Mutombo was a defensive player of the year, patrolling the paint, blocking shots, and doing things against everybody else that he couldn't possibly do against Shaq. And because of Dikembe Mutombo's ability to change the game on the defensive end of the floor, Shaq's dominant was not just big time in terms of his numbers, but it was important because of what Dikembe would have been able to do to the Lakers, if not for Shaq being in the lineup. But in other series, you looked at the greatness of Kobe on the perimeter and what he was capable of doing, and it's important. In this series, we look at Giannis Antetokounmpo. We see the Greek freak. We know he's going to get to the basket. We know what he's going to do. But we also saw him struggle from the free throw line. In Game 1, obviously, he was just back from the injury, trying to feel himself. Just not last night, really, more so than anything else. But Devin Booker, all of a sudden, Devin Booker has nothing for you, and it's not even a game. They down by damn near 30. And that's what I'm saying. I'm just looking at it differently. I'm not knocking the point about Giannis. I get where you're coming from. But I'm saying based on how depleted Phoenix is and what they need to win because of who they are, their makeup, that's what makes Booker so important in this series right now because of their circumstances.
Booker is not going to struggle shooting the ball for the rest of it. It's not going to be every game for the rest of the series.
Well, we're saying it's important because he can't. He can't afford to.
He's not built that way. What we've seen from Booker is the brighter the lights shine, the better he's generally performed. I don't think the Bucks can count on him not playing well. They're going to have to play better than the Suns.
We actually saw him have a couple of struggles in the first round, and then he come back and close it out the last 2 games, stuff like that. You know, that's all.
Yeah.
It could happen again, and then he shows up in Game 5. But he could have another stink in Game 4.
Maybe one.
Let me ask you this. The Suns are still favored to win the series, that according to Caesars. But outside of Giannis and Booker, because they're kind of the obvious ones, who then needs to step up? Who's the most important?
Me personally, I really believe that Monty Williams has to get this kid, Cameron Johnson, in the game more. The brother can shoot the basketball, man. He's athletic, he can shoot, and people keep forgetting that pedigree. He was at the University of North Carolina. He was the star of that team. His brother didn't come out of nowhere. He can ball, and he can shoot, and I would get him more minutes because he's got decent size with him, and he can hit three-point shots. You can't leave him open. I think that in order to beat Milwaukee, you're going to have to do it from the perimeter, and you're going to have to keep DeAndre Ayton from getting into foul trouble. You do that by making sure you can hit more perimeter shots, and I think you throw the gauntlet at them in that regard and make sure you got cats out there that can drill open shots. That's why I would say Cameron Johnson.
Cam Johnson is a starting caliber talent. He's a starting caliber type player. And in fact, I assumed this year that whatever it is, Jay Crowder in the beginning, by this time of year, Cam Johnson would be the starter. That didn't exactly happen that way. But you're right. Cam Johnson is a very talented player and can be helpful in this series to the Suns. And the fact is, I do believe, Stephen, I know you don't, that the Suns have the better starting five. They also have the best guy who's not in their starting five, I think, in the series.
All right.
Yeah, no disagreement there.
Yep. We'll leave it there, guys. When we come back, someone is good when the comparisons are to Babe Ruth. But Stephen A. Smith has a take on why this is bad for baseball. Do not miss that. Plus, speaking of baseball, the Yanks and Astros ending had us wondering, are they the best rivalry in sports at the moment? Max Kellerman says no. Wait till you hear his choice.
The only information that you need to know is that I don't have a mushroom on the top of my head like you.
Hart said you don't have a lineup, you have a circle up.
The only black man I know with a toupee.
That's Michael Irvin with the toupee. That's not me.
Two black men I know with toupees.
It's a fantastic field of young slugging superstars. We welcome you all to the Home Run Derby. Oh my goodness, showtime!
'Cause I got the drive, I'll put it in gear. Line them up, I don't see no competitors here. If it ain't first place, we really can't settle for it. Listen up, listen up.
A monstrous bomb! See you later!
Get ready, let's go. Get ready, running the show. Get ready, you already know. Let's go.
There you go. Shohei Ohtani has taken the MLB by storm this season. He's the first player in MLB history to be selected to the All-Star game as both a pitcher and a position player. Ohtani's bat has really been the story as he currently leads the league with 33 homers. That mark is tied with 1998 Sammy Sosa for the most home runs hit by a foreign-born player entering the All-Star break. And if he keeps this pace up, he can join Babe Ruth as the only players to lead the majors in home runs while making at least 10 pitching appearances that year. Ruth did this 102 years ago. My goodness. Stephen A. Smith, is this good for Major League Baseball that Ohtani's the top attraction?
Not to me. And I say not to me because I completely understand where other people are coming from, and I'll leave that side of the point to Max. And Max, you had the pleasure of meeting my high school buddy Jeff Brown this weekend in Las Vegas.
The whole family.
He's one of the biggest baseball fans I know, and he's very, very big on Ohtani. And I'll leave that to your side of the argument. And I just want to let you know I get where y'all are coming from. I'm just going to tell you where I'm coming from with this. Even though baseball is an international sport, and I totally get that, it's played in the United States and Canada. That's where Major League Baseball is being played. So when I'm looking at it from this perspective. In the United States of America, when you talk about the sport of Major League Baseball, you talk about its lack of diversity in terms of African American players. You talk about the influx of foreign players, whether they be from Venezuela, the Dominican Republic, Japan, or anywhere else. If you are a star and you need an interpreter, that might have something to do, not everything, because there's a lot of things that go into it, but that might have something to do with your inability to ingratiate yourself with that young demographic to attract them to the sport. I would remind you, Max, I would remind my brother Jeff, I would remind others that baseball is in trouble. The audience for Major League Baseball, the demographic repeatedly gets older. It's not getting younger. That younger demographic, which is the targets for all of the advertisers and sponsors and everybody else out there, that's the NBA and the NFL. Major League Baseball is struggling miserably. That's why you got a lot of people that have turned against the commissioner, Rob Manfred, because of all the changes that he's tried to incorporate and implement in an effort to save the sport. by elevating its level of interest, okay? And it's even alienated some of the players who are traditionalists and want things to remain the same as they always were. We all know that baseball, the sport of baseball, led by its players, are always the last to the party. Always the last to the party. They're so reluctant to change. They're always the last to the party. When I look at Ohtani, he is big time. Babe Ruth, 33 home runs, batting .279, got a 4-1 record with a .379 ERA as a pitcher. This brother is special. Make no mistake about it. But the fact that you got a foreign player that doesn't speak English, that needs an interpreter, believe it or not, I think contributes to harming the game to some degree when that's your box office appeal. It needs to be somebody like Bryce Harper, Mike Trout, those guys. And unfortunately, at this moment in time, that's not the case.
I mean, it could be DeGrom with the season he's having, the pitcher.
DeGrom.
Except people prefer offense. It could be Trout this year, who was having his best season early, and he might be the best player who ever lived, by the way. Mike Trout,
not American,
right?
but I get it. Right.
But then Trout got hurt. And the Angels weren't going anywhere anyway, right? Like in Trout's career, they made playoffs one time, and he didn't even hit well in those playoffs. But the point is this, Stephen A. Ohtani is doing something like, you're right about baseball, it skews too old. But what you can do in baseball is not just try to change and get more exciting, because intrinsically, baseball is not as exciting as basketball or football. Like soccer and baseball, a lot of people love them. I grew up with baseball. It's my favorite because I grew up with it. But I don't try to convince people it's the most exciting. So you know what baseball can do other than try to get more exciting? You're going to lose that competition to the NFL and the NBA. You can embrace your history. You have a longer, deeper history than those other sports on a professional level. And when something hasn't been done for over 100 years, look, Babe Ruth's the greatest player who ever lived. And people who I argue with will tell me, well, the league wasn't integrated. Fine, because the Negro Leagues were actually a major league when you look at the level of their competition. Who in the Negro Leagues or in Japan or in any other league around the world that's a top flight league ever dominated both sides of the ball like Babe Ruth. As a pitcher, he was the best, and as a hitter, he was the best. He had a World Series record for consecutive scoreless innings pitched before he set the home run record, right? Single season and all time. Look what Ohtani's doing. Ohtani is not only a stud, ace-level starting pitcher, many more strikeouts than innings pitched, a sub-4 ERA, and it just blew up recently. The Yankees had a good outing against them. Before that, his ERA was much lower in 13 starts. But Stephen A., he's leading the league in home runs, in triples, which is an athlete stat, right? Not just you hit the ball, but you can run the bases. He's 12 stolen bases, only 4 caught, good percentage. He can fast, he can steal bases. He's leading the league in slugging percentage. But check this out, Stephen A. Unlike Babe Ruth, who was competing against guys with day jobs and off-season jobs and little out-of-shape guys, Ohtani's competing against a worldwide competition of players at the highest level. There's a reason this has not been done in a century. This is great for baseball.
Stephen A., everyone speaks that language.
Don't talk. Let's not talk to me like I don't know my baseball, because I happen to know baseball a lot. I was raised with baseball, and I know you know yours as well, Max. And I certainly know my brother Jeff knows. So for me to disagree with y'all, I have to have a point, and I'm going to bring it up to you right now. Baseball was dying in the 90s. What saved it? It was the home run competition between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. Now, obviously, Sammy Sosa, we learned later during his testimony on Capitol Hill that suddenly he needed an interpreter. Baseball being very, very good to him. You know what I'm saying? That wasn't enough. He needed an interpreter to speak for him when he was on Capitol Hill. Certainly didn't need that when he was smacking those home runs. But Mark McGwire basically helped save baseball, because you had a dude that you could put on Wheaties boxes, all right, that could ingratiate himself with the younger generations out there and had America transfixed on the sport of Major League Baseball. What I'm saying to you is that's not the case. That's all I mean by that. I'm not taking anything away from Ohtani. I know what he's doing on the field. I know it's nothing short of spectacular. And I understand that baseball is an international sport itself in terms of participation. But when you talk about an audience gravitating to the tube or to the ballpark to actually watch you, okay, I don't think it helps that the number one face is a dude that needs an interpreter so you can understand what the hell he's saying in this country. And that's what I'm trying to say. In other sports, Max, like basketball, you notice, Dirk Nowitzki was German and Manu Ginobili and others were from other places. And guess what, Max? They spoke fluent English. You understood what they were saying when somebody was interviewing them. They didn't need an interpreter. It goes a long way. For some reason, with Major League Baseball, you got these guys that need those interpreters, and I think that compromises the ability for them to ingratiate themselves with the American public, which is what we're really talking about.
I think that's a good point. Not so much where you're from, because you bring up 98. Where
just needing an interpreter. That's what I mean.
We're in the home run race,
right?
McGuire and Sosa, but I'm a Yankees fan, as you are. Yankees won 125 games and swept the World Series that year. And when you look at that team, Bernie Williams, Puerto Rico, Mariano Rivera, Panama, El Duque breezed in from Cuba.
And they all spoke English.
And, okay, many of them. And not El Duque at first, but
not all.
My point is,
you're right,
baseball, it's not, as long as your point, and I see that it is not about Ohtani's not from here. That's the issue. If your point is he's got to learn English, I agree with that. I think the language barrier in every sport, not just baseball,
that's all I'm talking about.
To learn the native tongue of the vast majority of most Americans, or certainly the language that in which this country speaks. That would be helpful. But that's something that you can change. That's something you can learn over time. It's difficult to learn a language in a year. But that's something. But then the question: there's nothing intrinsic about Ohtani that hurts baseball. That's something that can be done. He can learn English.
Well, but the point is this, Max. If this was Bryce Harper, what would we be doing? We might be talking about baseball 5 days a week.
That's true.
That's what I'm saying.
Although to be fair, we've now talked about Ohtani this season a handful of times, which is more shine than baseball would otherwise be getting.
Yep. We've talked about him twice.
Those home runs are doing plenty of talking for me. It is very difficult to learn
really,
second
Molly?
language.
You sure?
I'm sure he's trying.
You sure?
That he's trying to learn English? Yeah, I think I'm sure.
No. I'm saying you sure? You sure that's enough for you, Molly? How many Angels games have you watched, Molly?
Actually, I've watched a lot because my best friend is married to a former pitcher. So CJ Wilson. So I actually went to a bunch of Angels games. Yeah, so if we're going to leave it there, sorry.
I haven't, but when Barry Bonds was smacking home runs or Mark McGuire was in, I was transfixed on the tube. You had ESPN interrupting programming to show them at the plate.
Stephen
they do that for Ohtani.
You're in Milwaukee, you're flying to Vegas. You just might not have time for Ohtani, but you'll catch up. Jeff will get you there.
With TVs where I were, I didn't watch.
We'll leave it there.
I waited for Sports Center.
Word on the street is there's a list that actually asks if Tom Brady is a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now. Does one of our fans everywhere are waiting for a resolution to the rift between Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Rodgers has been living his best life this offseason while also making it clear he is unhappy with Packers management. The 2020 NFL MVP shed some light on where his mindset is as training camp approaches.
I'm going to enjoy the hell out of this week, and then I'm going to get back to working out and figure things out in a couple weeks.
Looks all smiles to me. Same with this guy, 2-time Super Bowl champ Damian Woody on your screen. Damian, good to see you. You had me dying laughing this morning when you were thanking kind of Tom Brady for the fat crib you're living in. It's good stuff. I will start with you.
Hey.
Right? He certainly contributed, as did you. You did the work too. Yep. But we're going to focus on Aaron Rodgers. Those two hanging out at a charity golf event. That must have been fun. Where is Aaron Rodgers leaning? Damian, starting with you.
Who's up?
You.
Oh, you told me? What?
Yeah.
No, I tend to, I've said it all along. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to report when training camp opens. And if you listen to what he had said, he talked about, he's going to take a week and then, in a couple weeks, he's going to, get it all figured out. That really coincides with training camp. And listen, guys, the one thing about players is once you start getting closer to training camp, you start to get that itch, and players ultimately play. That's just what's in our DNA when training camp comes around, and Green Bay has all the leverage in this particular situation. I know we talked about different teams like the Denver Broncos and being the primary team, but no one really thought that Aaron Rodgers would be traded, because if Aaron Rodgers wants to win another Super Bowl, the best place for Aaron Rodgers to do that is Green Bay. They've been to the NFC Championship back-to-back years. He had an MVP last year with the Green Bay Packers. So, Listen, I've been said it. I've said it all off season with all this Aaron Rodgers drama going on. I think ultimately when the dust settles, Aaron Rodgers will be there in training camp when training camp starts for the Green Bay Packers.
Well, I mean, I hope not for his sake if he doesn't want to be there. And according to Stephen A., he doesn't want to be there. And not just Stephen A., many others. He doesn't want to be there. That's what all the reporting is and what the rumors have been. And if this is not just strictly football, look, Damian, you're right. If it's strictly football, I'd say the Packers are one of the best 3 to 5 places for him. Like, take all the quarterbacks off all the teams and say, where should Aaron Rodgers go? The Packers would be one of the candidates. They're a powerhouse team. They're really good. And with him, they're legit Super Bowl contenders, as we've seen in the last couple of years. But if I'm Aaron Rodgers and I don't want to be there, I'm thinking I don't think the Packers have all the leverage. Look, if they don't like Jordan Love, right, and they think they need a quarterback because otherwise they're ready to win a Super Bowl, if they don't want Jordan Love, you think, well, then they really need Aaron Rodgers and they're going to hold on to him. Well, if I'm Rodgers and I'm like, well, you can do whatever you want, I'm not going to play for you, I'm not showing up, what are they going to do? Get nothing for him, waste this season, or go get at least 3 first-round picks, or as Stephen A. said, a superstar and more stuff? They get a super, and if they do like Jordan Love and they think, yeah, he's ready to play, why wouldn't you want to surround him with multiple first-rounders, which you get for Aaron Rodgers? You would. Either way, Rodgers can dictate to the team that they will trade him, provided he is willing to sit out. And if he's not willing to sit out, what was this all about anyway? Ed, Stephen A.
Here's my deal. Max has been saying that, and I get where he's coming from, but I'm rolling with you, Damian, and I said it earlier in the show. I think that I'm getting the impression that he recognizes he's going to have to suck it up, because for all of this talk that the Green Bay Packers have been engaging in terms of, it being their organization and what they've done behind the scenes, players play, we run things, et cetera, they recognize the greatness of Aaron Rodgers and that this dude, people like him don't come along very often. This is a once-in-a-generation kind of talent. He's a bad man. Make no mistake about it. He is something special. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks that I've ever seen. A matter of fact, top 2 all time as a talent at the quarterback position. He's that elite as far as I'm concerned. And it's not about football. It's about the fact that they've treated him like garbage. They treated him like trash. And in the end, what it comes down to is this. The Green Bay Packers know they have his rights. They know that it's not in their best interest to let him go, not just football-wise, but financially, because of the cap hit they'll take. They're not going to inconvenience themselves in that regard and lose one of the greatest players to ever play quarterback in NFL history. And as a result, Aaron Rodgers knows that and possibly is recognizing, I got 2 choices. I can sit out this season, all right, and wait until next year where it would be more feasible for them to let me go, or I could come play this season, make sure everybody recognizes this is my last year in Green Bay, go for a Super Bowl title and call it a career in Green Bay. He's got one of those 2 options because he clearly wants to continue playing as opposed to retiring. That's where he is. But he let the world know he doesn't want to be a Green Bay Packer, and he's being forced to stay with this organization. So congratulations to Green Bay. You've got an elite quarterback who wants nothing to do with you, Mark Murphy, who wants nothing to do with you, Brian Gutekunst. He wants nothing to do with y'all. And y'all are literally forcing him against his will to stay a Green Bay Packers. Congratulations.
I mean, I really don't think they can make him do anything.
Well, listen, I think the one thing that the Green Bay Packers have done is be quiet. Because we heard, Mark Murphy early in the offseason, saying some ridiculous statements, and Brian Gutekunst having some statements. I think the biggest thing and the most important thing that they've done is just be quiet and just let time settle everything down. And again, I go back to Aaron Rodgers' statement where he talks about taking another week and then in a couple weeks kind of figuring it out. It just lines up with training camp. And again, I'm going to say, when training camp comes, guys tend to go out there and play. I think it's an all-or-nothing situation for Aaron Rodgers. He's going to either report or he's going to hold out for the whole year. It's not going to be one of those situations where, he holds out for a few weeks in training camp. No, that's just not how guys usually operate. I think Aaron Rodgers will report when the Green Bay Packers open up training camp.
Okay, now let's get to your former quarterback. So ESPN.com recently took a survey of 50 different executives, coaches, scouts, players to make a list of the 10 players at 11 different positions. And here's how the quarterbacks stack up. Mahomes, Rodgers, and Brady are the top 3, followed by Russell Wilson at 4, Josh Allen at 5. Max, you're an expert on all things Tom Brady, so it'll only be fitting that I started with you, obviously. Is Tom Brady still a top 3 quarterback?
Yeah, I have to give it up. I think they got that list exactly right. Only thing is I put Herbert with a bullet. You know, he's 9 with a bullet. I expect he could be a top 5 quarterback this year. That kid is great. But yeah, I got to give it to Brady. Like, who would you I take Mahomes before him. I thought Mahomes was the most spectacular player in the Super Bowl, in spite of the numbers. Just watch and put your eyes on the screen. And Rodgers was the reigning MVP. I'll take Brady. You know, like Russell Wilson has an argument, but I would put him 4th given the year he just had. Brady was excellent. He threw 40 touchdowns last year, didn't throw a lot of interceptions, led his team through growing pains, which included his own growing pains with the team. Every reason that everybody told me that I'd be wrong about the prediction was plainly true last season. And I think that based on talent and where they are in their careers and the seasons they just had, it's fair to take Mahomes and Rodgers ahead of them. You can make an argument for Russell Wilson. I think you'll lose that argument based on the last season they just had. And really no one else. Who else is really in the conversation?
Well, to me, it's sometimes I wonder about us. I wonder about this industry. When you can ask a question of a dude that is a 7-time champion and is right now, at age 43, the reigning, defending Super Bowl champion quarterback. And we're literally asking the question, does he belong in the top 3? Well, if he doesn't, who the hell does? I mean, it's just utterly ridiculous. We should be asking the question, why the hell is Matthew Stafford at number 6? Don't what you do in the postseason matters? Am I correct, Damian Woody, in saying that I don't think the Detroit Lions have won a playoff game in what is it, 30, 40 years?
It's 1 or 2 playoff wins in 60-something years.
I mean, Matthew Stafford doesn't have playoff victory. How you top 6? Ahead of Dak Prescott, ahead of Lamar Jackson. How you top 6? And I love Matthew Stafford. I know he's got game, but damn, you ain't won anything. How are you in the top 6? To me, there should be no question about Tom Brady. Tom Brady is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the National Football League because no one's won more championships than him. No one else is the reigning, defending Super Bowl champion. And oh, by the way, you know what? He just produces and he closes. He closes. Everything about the quarterback position is not about numbers. It's about leadership. It's about galvanizing all the pieces around you and maximizing the potential that you're surrounded with. And I don't know if we know of anyone that has ever been better than Tom Brady in that regard. That automatically puts him at top 3 without even looking at the numbers.
Well, listen, I thought this list was really, really good. I mean, you could look at the list and make maybe a couple slight changes, but I thought for the most part the order was really good by everyone that was chosen to be a part of it. I think, Stephen A., as far as Matthew Stafford is concerned, I think it's more of an indictment on the Detroit Lions organization than Matthew Stafford, and I get it. You know, he has no postseason wins. But that's why I also say coming into the season, as far as Matthew Stafford is concerned, I think he's under the most pressure of any player in the National Football League this year. Because now, going to the Los Angeles Rams with Sean McVay and shipping Jared Goff, a guy who took you to the Super Bowl, shipping him to Detroit, that says a lot about who they think, and a lot of people around the league think that Matthew Stafford is. If he doesn't deliver with the Los Angeles Rams, boy, that's going to be a big indictment on Matthew Stafford as far as his body of work, as far as his career is concerned. But I'm going to take it to another guy on this list. I think Justin Herbert, by the end of this year, is going to be a top 5 quarterback. I do. I think Justin Herbert is going to be a top 5 quarterback in this league by the end of this 2021 season. Listen, think about this for a second. The guy had no offseason last year. None. Zero. First game of the year, Tyrod Taylor gets a bad injection right before pregame. And then Justin Herbert has to come in without even getting all the starters reps in that week leading up to the game. And all he did was light it up. And he never looked back since. All he did was throw for over 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Okay? Then you look at what the Los Angeles Chargers have added to help this young man. They went out there and got 2 offensive linemen, which was a big issue for the Los Angeles Chargers. Guys, I think Justin Herbert is going to be a superstar.
I know this started
sooner rather than later.
I know this started as a Tom Brady conversation, but I want to, or debate. We agree he's top 3. I want to address the 2 guys you brought up, both of you guys, Matt Stafford and Justin Herbert. I said Justin Herbert should be with a bullet. He might be top 5 by the end of this year. I agree. That kid is great.
None of us disagree about Justin Herbert.
That's right. But Stafford is interesting because Stafford was always seen the way that Herbert is now seen. Oh, my God, look at this kid's talent, right? But he was in a bad organization that couldn't win, and that includes with him. Even though he's putting up the numbers into the eyeball test, he's leading comebacks and all that stuff, fourth quarter, all this stuff. And Stafford's now going to L.A. I agree the pressure is all on him. Tom Brady won all those Super Bowls, because we're talking Tom Brady, with the Patriots. But how would he do outside the Patriots? He went to a loaded team, but he won with that loaded team. Stafford didn't do anything in Detroit in the playoffs, but now he's also going to a loaded team. What's he going to do with the loaded team? His whole legacy's on the line. Because if he doesn't do anything with it, we're going to look back and go, oh, maybe it just wasn't Detroit. Maybe it's something about Stafford. And if he does, we'll see his whole career with Detroit a different way.
Well, I'm already there because I know that the Detroit Lions are off. When I just looked it up, Damian, Molly, Max, the Detroit Lions, if I remember correctly, if these stats tell me something, the last time the Detroit Lions have one playoff victory. They went to the conference finals in 1991.
Yep.
That is the only playoff victory that the Detroit Lions have had since 1957.
Yeah. City
so we
deserves
understand
better.
how bad that is. We understand how bad that is. But guys, Matthew Stafford was in the playoffs 3 times. I mean, I understand that you might not have got there the other years, but the 3 times you got to the playoffs against New Orleans, against Dallas, against Seattle, you lost all 3. He did have 3 bites at the apple to win a playoff game, and that didn't happen. So I think it's 2-3, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, come on.
The most underrated stat, like, by the way, the least talked about playoff futility stat is the Lions' one playoff win in almost 65 years now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, listen, at least they got the top pick in the lottery.
And they on every Thanksgiving, y'all. They're on every Thanksgiving at noon. Why? Why are they on at Thanksgiving?
Because they're turkeys.
All right. Enough with the Detroit slander, okay? Let's all take it down.
No, Detroit's nice. The downtown area, it's booming. They're doing nice things there. The football team is another matter. But the city, they're doing a lot better.
Detroit's
I know. Everyone retires early there. I don't know what the deal is. But I understood there was a little Saturday Night Fever happening, so I need to see this. Okay, Stephen A. Talk to me. Chains, icy. I like it. Clean look. Look at you. You know what, Stephen A., you dressed for the occasion, too. You were out there in Vegas. You had the light colors. I'm with it. But seriously, I just want those chains. Because I've got some gold chains, but I don't have them like that because I don't have that Stephen A. kind of cash. So if a girl could maybe borrow something like that, my goodness.
I need Stephen A. to talk to me. Because, boy, you talk about 2 chains. Boy, you was iced out.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta be classy with it. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to be too gaudy, which I don't think I was. That was actually a suit jacket. I have that white is in a suit. But I just wore the jacket because I wanted to mix it up. I had the black shirt max. I had the Tom Ford top. I had the ice. My brother Gerard, he's a junior in L.A. I mean, I advise anybody to go, you need his number, I'll give it to you. The brother's something special with his jewelry right there. Yeah. And they convinced me, a few months ago to buy a couple of chains. I know it looked nice. It was a Saturday night at a UFC event in Vegas. the moment calls for certain things. Like this morning here in Milwaukee, no. If I'm in Phoenix Friday or Saturday, no. But for
I will
Vegas,
not have Milwaukee slander on this show. I want to be very clear.
I will not either.
Time out. Well, there's no Milwaukee slander. I'm here right now.
Don't go there.
I'm here right now. Okay? And by the way, I'm still not apologizing for saying that it's too damn cold. That's all it is. But I love the city. They're good people here. I just don't like cold weather.
People took
That's
it
not
the
a
wrong way.
crime.
Yeah.
It's not a crime.
I'll tell you what, this time of year, wait a minute, this time of year, better Milwaukee than Phoenix or Vegas?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, you could say that, but I didn't mind 109, 110 degrees in sunshine instead of gray skies at 70. But that's all it is. But the fans are great. The arena's great. All of that. The team is great. But the moment in Vegas with the blazer and the ice, I just thought it called for it. So that's what I'm not one-dimensional.
Everyone put on a suit.
Like some people
put on a suit
that
and
I
tie
know.
and leave it alone.
I'm not one-dimensional.
Stephen A., I bragged for you. Okay, Max.
Before I started, listen, I wore a leather jacket on the air for Friday Night Fights in '98, and I had the tiger's eye iced out on both sides, the whole thing. And then I realized that I'm on TV, going to work, and put on a suit and tie.
You were looking a little like Maluma. I like it on both of you. I do. Woody, I like it too.
Doesn't even look like Damian Wood.
Time. Molly.
Wait a minute, can I get my beard back?
He went to stock footage and got some picture. Who is that?
May I speak? Since y'all are talking about my outfit, may I speak?
Sure.
First of all, don't ever put Max Kellerman in any one of my outfits. It don't work. It don't work. He got flavor, but he ain't got that kind of flavor. That's not Max, okay? You got to have a tie on Max, okay? There ain't even a bow tie, but you got to have a tie on Max Kellerman. You can't rock the ice like that because they're going to say he vanilla ice. You see what I'm saying?
No,
it don't
I used
work.
to rock the ice, Stephen A., when I was a teenager.
On Damian, it looked good. On Damian, it looked good.
Listen, I want to see my Photoshop. I was going to screenshot it and then use it as my Christmas wish list because I'm into those two chains, Stephen A., and I'm not playing. We'll leave it there, guys. Damian, thank you for being with us. We missed you. The wild Astros ending, fellas. Yesterday, the Yankees-Astros rivalry right back to front.